So we have everybody here.
All right, we're ready to get started. Dave, if you want to start with an opening statement, and then we'll go into questions.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate everybody being here this morning, and congratulations to our local high school teams for having a great weekend and having 3 teams advancing to the Final Four in their respective classes. So congratulations to them. Our Purdue team is looking forward to 2 matches in Holloway Gym this week, Wednesday night against Northwestern, and on, I believe it is Sunday. Is that right, Rachel?
That's correct.
Sunday we have Wisconsin Badgers here, and we need to play well. We were snake bit by Michigan State on our home court last Wednesday in a 5-setter, where I thought Michigan State played very well, and we were not as sharp as we needed to be. And then we went to Nebraska to play another really good Husker team, and I thought we competed really well up there. Even after watching a couple rounds of tape, I felt like our team played pretty well. They were just really, really hard to score points against, and they're playing at a high level. They're 10-0 in the Big Ten right now. But I felt like it was a step in the right direction, and we need to get better every day in practice, and without overdoing it at this time of year. One of the things that we're still have to be aware of is that we played last spring, and we had a very short time off before getting right back into what might be the toughest Big Ten season ever. And so there's a fine line between trying to be in the gym and grinding it out and making sure your athletes are fresh and healthy from that regard. But again, 2 really big matches at home this weekend, and I know our team's looking forward to playing and having our best performance as possible. So, Sam?
You kind of talked about being snake bit by Michigan State. This is a league where you can't afford to go on a losing streak, and when you have a confident team, maybe some of those younger players experiencing losing consecutively for the first time. How important is this match now that you kind of get right back on track with Northwestern on Wednesday?
Well, I think it is important. There's so many ominous teams that you have to try to beat, and Northwestern is a team that has good talent. They have one of the best players in our league in Temmie Thomas. That's just a tremendous athlete, and has been much talked about. And they have a 6-foot 3.5-inch setter that's doing some really good things for them. They have a transfer from from BYU that is playing really well, that is helping them. And they've just got good players, much like Michigan State. There's not many teams in our league that don't have really good players. And we have to just find ways to keep improving and be prepared for people. And you lose one to Michigan State on a Wednesday, you think that would have your team's attention when the next Wednesday night match comes around, and I hope that will be the case.
I know you've talked about this before, but the data just from clocking the serves, doing it during matches, where did the idea to kind of do that and maybe get more into the analytics come from?
Well, we've in the past have used radar guns, and I think the idea came from the standpoint I'm looking at our stats, and we're not doing well enough with our serving. And so we wanted to compare, who was serving the ball with pace and why not. And it's kind of like hitting. There are some people that naturally can just hit the tar out of the ball. They've just got great arms. And there are some that don't have those arms that are equipped to do that. And they better be really good at some other ways of scoring points. And serving similar, there are some people you just can't expect are going to serve rockets over the net, but they better find some other way to be effective with the serve. And I still feel like we can do better in that area. I think we're making some progress, and it's hard to really evaluate how good your serving is. It's not based on aces. Your ability to serve effectively isn't always based on aces per game. It's based on the opponent's side-out percentage and what are they doing, how well are they passing your serve. And you may not get a lot of aces, but if they're passing every ball out of system, then you're giving yourself a chance to win. So there's a lot of different ways to evaluate that. But I think the reason we decided to put more emphasis on the radar gun and the pace is that we're not getting enough out of our serve. And I think that you'll see our serve continue to get better. And I think it is. But there are still a couple of spots that I feel like we have to get more done.
Is that student managers, or I guess who's charting all of this?
Our managers are doing that. We've got a volunteer manager in Greg Weller that was a former high school coach in the area and club coach that is part of our program. That's he's taken that on as one of his primary responsibilities, but he also has managers doing it during matches to make sure that there's not a major discrepancy between practice and matches. There's going to be some because you're going to be a little more cautious in matches. That's just become a natural phenomenon for some reason. But we're checking both, and we're finding out that we're serving the ball harder in practice than we are in matches, and we'd like to even that out some.
Last thing for me, and it's not related to Purdue, and you kind of alluded to this, but how's high school volleyball in this area really risen since you've been here? Obviously they needed a constant club scene here, I think, and it seemed to take off here.
Yeah, and I'm kind of limited to what I can say because the NCAA is probably listening, or somebody is that has connections with the NCAA. Lafayette has always had a good volleyball presence. I mean, I remember when I was coaching high school volleyball, we'd run into some pretty good teams out of this area, and I'm not going to mention anybody by name because I think I'm safe if I don't. But they were really good back in the 90s. Some really good teams with some really good coaches in this area. And then they just kind of took a little bit of a dip like communities can do. But I think that because of an emphasis that has been put on club volleyball here in the past few years, especially in the last 7 or 8, they've been fortunate to have some really determined and dedicated club people training kids, on a regular basis. And now you're starting to see what that can do. And so I think that we're in a really good place right now for youth volleyball in this community.
Dave, do you worry at all with a veteran team like this about confidence? You'd think with a young team you might be concerned if you lose a couple matches. Is that at all a concern with this group?
I'd say sure. It's you never know when your team might break down a little bit of confidence. I'm not at that point right now. As I mentioned, I thought we showed up at Nebraska. We played great that first set. We put on a show for the first 80% of that first set, and then they had Knuckles went back and served some really, really tough balls, and unfortunately that changed the momentum. We won the set, but it certainly changed the momentum, and they kind of got back into it, and then they really controlled the second and the third set, and then I thought the fourth set was really well played. Both teams played really well in that fourth set, and our kids did everything that they could do. They fought. They made great play after great play, both offensively and defensively. And I do think it helps when you've got veteran players that have been through this before. They know there's going to be ebbs and flows unless you're just the juggernaut in this league, and we're not the juggernaut in this league. We're a really good team in this league, but we're not the team that can just go out, walk on the floor, and beat people. We have to play well. But I think our players have been through that quite a bit. I look forward to Mo Horning being back at 100%. I thought she was probably 80% in the match. At Nebraska, she toughed it out beautifully, did a lot of really good things. If you watched, you saw JL played about 5 points in 4 sets. And having her back soon will help us. Hopefully that will happen sooner than later. It just puts a lot of pressure on 2 young middles when you've got Raven still trying to figure things out. And I thought she blocked really well for the most part against Nebraska. And of course, Taylor Trammell, who's got a year of experience. And I thought she also played well against Nebraska. I didn't think either one were real good in the match against Michigan State, mostly because Michigan State played a great match against us, and they had so much action in their offense. It's kind of like football coach where you got a passing and a running game, and they're running all kinds of different stuff, and it's really hard for a young defensive lineman to figure all that out. And that's kind of how our middle blockers were a little bit against Michigan State, when they were just really on top of their game, and it was hard to catch up with it.
Lastly, for me, taking the record out of the equation, are you where you thought you would be at the midpoint of the Big Ten season in your caliber of play right now?
I think for the most part we are. I feel like our players have done a really, really nice job in training and preparing and being ready to go. It's just a league that if you let up for a minute, it's going to show. And everybody's got problems, as you know. Just because we had Mo and J.L. Johnson out doesn't mean other teams haven't had the same problems, because they have. We just know it because it's in our house. And so we recognize we're not at full strength. But most teams have not been at full strength at times during the season. So we look forward now to getting them back and giving us that veteran leadership that they have. Because those are our two leaders. Really, I mean, you look right at it. I mean, our leader in the front court is J.L. Johnson. Our leader in the back court is Marissa Hornung. And we have missed them. But I think when we get them back, it will be helpful. And I think it's benefited some players to get extra playing time. Raven Colvin is a much better player now because she's played all 4 of the last matches that we've played against really good competition. And Mo Hornung's younger sister is in much better position right now because Allie has been tossed into the fray and played a lot more that she hasn't played. So, you miss, it hurts you some, on the scoreboard, but it helps you as we move forward. And right now, our focus, Tim, is not necessarily on where are we going to finish in the Big Ten right now. It's going to be how ready are we going to be when the NCAA tournament starts, putting ourselves in a position to have, number one, get in the tournament, have a decent seed, and be playing our best volleyball at that time. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Coach.
Alex.
Thank you for your time today.
Yep.
Going into Wednesday's game, you said you got snake bit against Michigan State, and I believe that was after the win against Penn State, if I'm not mistaken. So does preparation change at all, like taking away things from that last week's loss?
A little bit. I mean, I don't think that we did anything wrong in our preparation. Last week we had played on Sunday. We played Penn State here on a Sunday, mandatory day off on a Monday, practice Tuesday, play Wednesday. This week, a little bit different. Played on the road at Nebraska on Saturday. Sunday's the day off. Monday, we start the process of looking at ourselves on tape, looking at Northwestern on tape, talking about their personnel. So we have a day that we didn't have necessarily last week. We needed the day off because it was important. We had that day off. We got ours on Sunday this week, so we have a little bit more time to hopefully get ready. I don't think that was a reason why we didn't play well against Michigan State. I thought Michigan State just put it together. They were due. They made lineup changes because we prepared for one lineup. They played a different lineup. They did things that we hadn't seen from them. So for us, it was adjusting on the fly. So when I talk about having young middles, and not only are you having to prepare for a team in one day, they're not putting that lineup on the floor. And they're doing different things, and they had Franklin coming from every spot in the front row and in the back row, and I had the other kid, Max Brown, from the Canadian kid that was just really, really good, and they just played great. We couldn't we couldn't put enough pressure on with the serve to get them out of system, and when that team is in system, they can be really good. So it's not going to be a whole lot different, except we've gotten started a day early, and our coaching staff was in here this morning at 8:30 talking about what we needed to do today. So I'd say, is it different? Yeah, I think there is difference, and that loss probably will help us a little bit to be better prepared this week.
As you mentioned, Temmie Thomas is a really big part of Northwestern's offensive success. Do you consider, if you kind of isolate her in the game plan and you shut her down, are they an easy team to beat, or do they still have enough to where they could give you some trouble?
Yeah, I'd be real silly to say that anybody's an easy team to beat if you shut anybody down. They've got more good players this year, capable players, than they've had in the past several years, in my opinion. Their middles are both capable of scoring. You can't ignore their two middles, okay? The right side player, Gerbach, dad played in the NFL, played at quarterback at Michigan. Obviously has a pretty good arm, so you've got to pay attention to her. The other left side that plays opposite Temi is a kid named Lisiak that's also got a really good arm. Their setter adds a dimension to their team because she is really offensive, meaning most setters just set the ball. This setter likes to score points on the second contact. So now it's more complex than trying to shut down Temi Thomas, although that obviously is where most teams start because she's such a physical specimen with a dynamic jump and a really good arm.
Last one for me. Thank you. You helped me figure out how to pronounce Gerbach, so thank you
Yeah.
for that. Do you even turn on the tape for Wisconsin until Thursday morning after this Northwestern game because it's such a big game?
Personally, as a coaching staff, we'll see how far we get with Northwestern during the week. Sometimes you can watch too much tape, and so at some point in time, I'm sure we may feel like, okay, we got Northwestern. This is our plan. We're going to stick with it. We just got to go out and execute, and then maybe start watching some of Wisconsin. But we'll have ample time after the Northwestern match. It's a Sunday match with Wisconsin, so we should have time. And as people have pointed out already in the room today, the match on Wednesday is significant, that we play well and that we win.
And then lastly, from JD, who couldn't be here today, he wanted to know, what do you say to your team to leave behind this past week and focus on Northwestern and Wisconsin?
Yeah, it's just not the same without JD here, to be honest with you. But, when we left Nebraska, I told the team I thought that we had played pretty well, that we had competed. And I didn't feel that way when we got done on Wednesday night. So, it wasn't that, there were times during the match where I pushed them and challenged them, but when the match was over, I felt like, we had performed pretty well. I think now, as you look going into this week, you evaluate everything that you've seen in the last several weeks, and you identify some things that we have to improve on. And some of that is, can we play harder? Can we have more cohesion? Can we get everybody more engaged in what we're doing as we move forward? And we're at the halfway mark of the Big Ten season. And we got these 7 players that have 10 regular season matches left to play in their career. And they need to recognize how valuable every one of those is. And all 7 of those people are pretty important to our team. So I think that, coaches overvalue their job way too much. And I think that at some point in time, you ought to just let the players figure it out, because this team's got the players that can figure it out.
Perfect.
Okay?
All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.